I'm excited for you all to connect with us today and experience a different type of Inspire. We do hope to be able to see more of you face to face in the coming months.
Thank you, Mayra. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. I wish we had this event as an in-person event, but nevertheless, good to see a lot of you here and able to connect. I just wanted to take a few minutes here talk about how the year has been and what's ahead. Now, this year is a special year for us, and particularly because this is the first year, this is the year where we're celebrating our 25 years. It feels like a long time in some aspects, but in other aspects, it feels like yesterday where we started experimenting with some applications online. Uh, but 25 years into it, as a company, it still feel like a startup, and we believe we are just getting started. And on behalf of the entire team, I want to thank you all for all the support from you, all the continued support. I know a lot of you have been with us from the beginning. You've seen us, get started with 2 or 3 applications and join us throughout the journey. And want to, uh, thank you for all of that continued support. And we think we have a very very strong road ahead, and we hope this will be a long journey ahead. Want to take a look back at 2021 and see where we are or where we were, and just touch on a few things. Some milestones we may have hit, some change in direction. I'm going to keep it really short here. One, the user count has been growing this year. In fact, just a couple of weeks back, we hit a 75 million user mark. It's been uh, great hitting this, and continuous growth despite the pandemic. We have seen significant growth, and the growth accelerate on this front. The user count is important because that is the leading indicator. End of the day, it is all about users and converting into customers and whatnot. So user count being the leading indicator, and that has been growing. It's a good milestone. And yeah, adding over million users every month is good. And I remember it took us about 4 or 5 years to get to the first 100,000, which was a milestone. And this is a good milestone we hit a few weeks back. Now that directly contributes to the revenue. We are seeing great growth during the pandemic. Certainly 2021 has been a good year. Vijay will get into the details on the revenue side, but so far in 2021, the global revenue growth has been around 38%. And focusing on US and Canada specifically, US is our largest market, and it continues to grow at a healthy pace. And if you notice, other regions have been growing fairly well. Vijay will get into more details on this. And this can be attributed to the customer growth. And a couple of milestones here. We now have 500,000 customers. These are companies, paying companies, and that's big number and a big milestone. And if you look at US and Canada, again, the customer growth has been substantial, and over 200,000 customers from US and Canada. Now, during the pandemic, uh, we changed strategy a little bit. We came up with a new execution strategy. We call it Transnational localism. What this means is us building a team or building teams globally to serve local customers locally. So every region will have a local team, a strong local team to serve its local customers, and that is a strategy. And historically, for those of you who have been with us for a while, most of the globe has been served from our India office. Now there is a change in that, where we are now strengthening our local teams so that we can help our local customers and their needs locally. And before we adopted this strategy, we had offices in several countries, and we set up uh, offices in about 10 plus countries. But once we decided the strategy, we have significantly expanded, and we have a lot of feet on the ground. And this is how it looks now. We now have feet on the ground in 25 different countries, and in each of these locations we have been expanding. Again, with the strategy behind this is what we call transnational localism. We're helping local customers, working with local partners, locally with the local team. And of course, we continue to work with our product teams in India and whatnot, with the customer facing and whatnot, ability to assist them locally. But the transnational part of it is where we continue to share ideas across regions. With that strategy, we kept on expanding, and that expansion is global. Certainly in US and Canada, we have expanded as well. I mean, if you look at the headcount growth this year, grew by 50%. We had about 120 people last year. In 2020, we added about 60 people, and this will continue to grow. The team here in US and Canada will continue to grow as well. And if you look at US, we have had offices in California and Austin, and we have added a few locations in Texas as part of the growth. And there is another strategy, we call it rural revival, where we take our jobs to locations that are otherwise ignored, but they have some talent out there. With that, we have expanded, and we have also changed locations for our offices. In fact, we our office in Austin moved to our farm, and next time, hopefully, when we have an Inspire event, hopefully it'll be at our farm, and we are certainly looking forward to this. We are building this up, so we are doing it the Zoho way, a unique way that makes sense for everyone. And apart from expanding in Austin, we have added locations in Texas as well. Uh, the second office we opened in Texas is in New Braunfels. In fact, that release went out just today. So our New Braunfels office is now open. We have about 20 employees working from that office. We do plan to open an office in South Texas, in McAllen, later part of, or actually early part of next year. We have already some employees working from there, and we do have plans to go east of Austin and expand there. The idea is similar, where we want to you set up offices where there is talent. So the expansion in the region will continue. Expansion in our offices will continue, and this applies to Canada as well. This year, after a long time, we now have a Zoho Canada entity. It took us longer than expected, but we now have a Zoho Canada entity officially registered. We also now are setting up an office. We have a handful of people in as part of the Zoho Canada entity. It's going to be in a small place called Cornwall, Ontario. So that is also progressing pretty well. This is all part of that transnational localism investment. But there are a lot of things that are moving. We can discuss later offline when we have more time. But looking ahead, I think one thing we got to recognize, particularly among the global uncertainty we face, is as a company we are operating with some very strong fundamentals. We have excellent set of people who have been with company for long periods of time. We have a very, very strong culture. Our financials, the balance sheet looks good. We continue to grow. We continue to expand regionally. Our product portfolio is stronger than ever. Roadmap is stronger than ever. Our investments in technology are starting to pay off. So we are at a very, very strong position as a company, and we certainly think the coming years are going to be, pretty solid as well. I think we are still in the early part of the innings here, so we We want to thank you for your continued support, and we'll take additional questions in a subsequent session. With that, I want to pass it back to Myra.
Thank you, Raju. Those are definitely great updates. I would also love to see all of you out at the farm next year. So let's hope that things get back to normal. And we will bring Raju back in as well for a Q&A session with the two. I'd like to remind you that we do have a questions module on the right-hand side. And if you would like to ask a question live, please denote the word live in your question, and we will call on you if we take the question to request mic access. So the first question comes from Dave Stoffer. I will project the question for everybody to see. I will ask Vijay this question. Is there any indication of how Zoho One sales impact cross-sell?
One, if I understand the question right, our ability to, the fact that we had Zoho One and people migrate from other Zoho products is absolutely something we've been seeing. That's one of the biggest trends, in fact, we've seen the last couple of years is it's become an anchor for people to engage more into Zoho. Once you're in Zoho One, we still have a challenge. Now they've got the whole suite, right? Now they're not going to buy anything more from you. But there's a lot of opportunity to get them to work more deeply with Zoho, engage. A lot of times there are too many products for people to even understand what they should do and even go through a path of how they should transform their business. Big opportunity for us.
And to add an additional point there, once you have sold Zoho One, you may not have additional products to sell, but that comes in handy in other ways, where once they are in Zoho One, any additional users they add, they are on Zoho One. There is that incremental revenue that keeps coming because once they are on Zoho One. Then there is another aspect or a different angle, which is retention. Zoho One helps with retention significantly.
Awesome. Thank you. And the next question is anonymous, but also important. So Raju, I will ask this question to you. Will there be another price increase because of the US inflation?
Well, because the inflation on the percentage is unknown, there are a lot of unknowns, as Vijay mentioned. We'll have to play it up. So at this point, just to be clear, we increase the prices for new customers. For existing customers, we are doing a flat increase in Jan for existing customers. Now, there is no immediate plan, but then we have to see how things play out in the market. If if you see anything like, let's say, Argentina, well, for those of you who are not familiar, Argentina inflation, year-over inflation is about 50%. We may not have an option. We don't know, not that we are expecting it to be that, but we will have to see how the market plays out, and based on that, we have to adjust course. I know Vijay has been working on it. So Vijay, if you want to add anything else.
No, well said. We have to be prepared. There is no plan currently. I just want to make a couple of points. Sometimes we get pressure and pushback from customers. I would do the same if I were a customer to fight against our price increase. And as a sales team and as a partner team, we have to express our reasonableness with this whole approach. We announced this thing, more than 6 or 7 months ago. We gave people time to adapt. We gave people time to change and adapt their budgets. And we're instituting only a fixed raise for current customers and applicable only in January of next year. So we've approached this in a very reasonable way. And it's important for us to stand our ground and present that to customers and say, look, nobody expected we'd be sitting at 6.8 inflation in the US and 4.7 inflation in Canada in December of this year. So cut us a little bit of slack. It's good for us if we stay in business and make money too. It's good for you if we stay and make and are profitable too. So I'd like you to stand your ground on that.
Thank you. And we have a question from Ashley Nader. Says, since events are now virtual for the foreseeable future, will there be opportunities to virtually network and connect with our partners and resellers? We have a great program. We're struggling to get the word out since the shift to virtual and remote. So I would actually like to take an opportunity to start answering that one. Yes, we do have things on the roadmap for the coming year to where we do get to do a bit more of partner engagement. We know that we had to shift a lot over the past year, and it is hard to, have networking events with 3, 4, 500, 600 of you partners, but we will have more partner focused events in the coming year. And we will try to do some where maybe we have some smaller groups where we include partners from even different regions we do love the peer-to-peer learning. And Tyler asked a great question. Raju, I will assign this one to you. Does Zoho have a marketing plan ready to go in case of economic downturn? Maybe one centered around cost savings from migrations to Zoho from various more expensive business apps.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have actually a few marketing plans in place for 2022, and this is for various segments, various for products and whatnot. And the plan is to, spend a little bit more money next year on marketing on new innovative channels and get going. Similarly, when it gets challenging, historically we've had, good success in those markets, and we will double down on marketing during that, because at that point you're not competing with free money that other vendors are throwing. That our marketing dollars will go further during a downturn, and we will be investing in marketing campaigns on that. And of course this will be the case globally as well. Do we have plans? Absolutely. Do we have a few campaigns in mind? Yes. And whether we see a downtown or not, next year we plan to initiate a few campaigns in US and Canada.
Awesome. Thank you. And then Tyler had asked another question that I will assign to you, Vijay. Let me project that. How does the new and cross-sell revenue growth in the US and Canada look when filtered for partner engaged revenue? Are those numbers that we have, or any insight you can give us into that?
Hey, that's actually an excellent question. And I have to admit, I should have had the answer to that, and I don't. So typically, I would say what I've seen is that the cross-sell revenue tends to be higher for partners. Not sure about the new. That depends on the region. So let me actually get back and see what that is rather than venture a guess, but that's an excellent question.
Awesome. Thank you for the honesty. And Raju, Zach Spader asked, can you explain why the two main email marketing applications, Campaigns and Marketing Automation, have so much feature overlap? Why have two separate products that do relatively the same thing?
So that's a very good question. Very good observation. This has been it has been an internal challenge, and as some of you know, marketing automation and campaigns are going through a revamp, and the clarity on all of that is going to be emerging in the coming days. If not this week, probably next week, you'll hear something on the next version of marketing automation. The team is going to post an update on it, and will provide you access in the next 10 days or so, at least based on my recent conversation with them this week. Has there been both these applications were kind of done by the same team, and they were deciding which one to include where, but they had their own reasoning, but I'm not going to get in there. But increasingly you will see a good clarity between campaigns as well as marketing automation. Marketing automation will be a hub. Campaigns is an email channel, and marketing automation will pull all the data across all channels. Other channels apart from email will include events like this one, website, and campaigns, social media, and various others, and pull together so that you'll be able to orchestrate a few things. So there is going to be a clear differentiation between marketing automation and campaigns. It has been a little confusing, but 2022 it is going to be fixed, and the new marketing automation looks good. I was impressed. I had a demo this week. I was impressed with the direction, so I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback on it.
Thanks, Raju. And Vijay.
Myra, can I add something quick?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, just want to follow up to the question asked earlier. Thanks to my colleague Connor, who's been very quick with his thumbs, we've got your information on that last question. The question was, how does new and cross-sell revenue look like if you only look at partner-generated revenue, right? That's the question. So the overall was about, what did we see? A 9% drop, right? So the partner portion is actually only a 2.5% drop, between 2 and 2.5%. So the partners are doing better. It's still a drop, but they're doing better relative to what we're doing directly. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vijay and Connor.
Thank you, Connor. Yeah.
And so, Vijay, I will ask you the next question from Fabrice Vanegas. Which industries have you seen the most growth for in Canada and US, and which industry do you see the most potential for in 2022?
Yeah, a common area for us that we've seen growth is we've seen this in retail and anybody selling online. That's been a case of the pandemic too. That's across the industry. Those businesses are doing a lot better. And so we see that reflected in what we do. So we'll continue to see businesses that grow with us that actually are more capable of delivering to their customers online, are more capable of surviving in, if not a completely online world, a hybrid world. So those are definitely going to be growth opportunities. I'll also let Raju jump in if he wants to add something.
Yeah, we have seen good spike in services businesses and whatnot. We've also seen spike in startups, not in industry, but this year we have seen, if you look at the SMB market, 34% of our businesses shut down in the last year or so. But if you look at new companies that are started, in US typically there are about 2 to 3 million businesses that start in a typical year. But during the pandemic, that rose up to about 4 to 5 million. It almost doubled, and we are seeing those startups, jump onto Zoho, and of course, travel and all of those were impacted negatively. But the services is one that certainly is starting to stand out. Real estate is another another market industry that is starting to pick up. Partly it has to do with the global economic bubble, or whatever you call it.
Thank you, Raju and Vijay. And Raju, I will ask this anonymous question to you. As the pricing of certain applications changes, the included features do as well. Do you plan on continuing to grandfather existing customers into their prior features despite the pricing change?
I mean, the important thing is context. The context plays an important role when deciding the pricing changes and whether we include or grandfather and whatnot. We, in general, philosophically, we act on behalf of the customer. We try to make the best decision for the customer. There could be other reasons where we may have to pull a few things, because as we evolve over a decade or so, how many versions of pricing do you grandfather? There were cases there are 5 or 6 versions of pricing we had to grandfather, and it becomes complicated. So in some cases we have to nudge some of the customers to move in. But in general, our approach is we want to grandfather some of these, but in some cases we may not have an option. Like take something like an inflation, right? How can you take or grandfather a customer with us being hit by inflation, like where your input costs are going up, but can output pricing remain the same? It cannot. So in some cases, there could be other such variables which will have an impact, and we may have to nudge customers into the latest pricing. But in general, broadly, we try to act as much as possible on behalf of the customer.
Thank you, Raju. And for the next question, I'm sure you both have opinions on it, but I will start with you, Vijay. And the question comes from Juan Lujan. Are there any plans to introduce cryptocurrencies or blockchain technology?
Not to my knowledge.
Cryptocurrencies, no, we will not. Blockchain, yes. We have been doing some experiments on that internally, And some of our applications already do support it. For example, if you look at Zoho Sign integrates with Ethereum, where your digital, the document that was signed, a ledger of that is connected with Ethereum, and there's a proof of that available in Ethereum. That integration does exist. That said, the technology part, there are some teams within our company that are experimenting with it. We'll likely see a few things. I don't know if it'll be next year, but certainly there are some experiments going on. But at this point, there's nothing to really announce.
Thank you.
That's a good distinction. That's a good distinction between the technology and the use of the currency. So yeah, because we have contract management software, all of the stuff that's coming that requires that kind of validation.
Exactly. And there are other aspects to it, like there is a blockchain in the context of accounting makes sense. Blockchain in the context of identity makes good sense. And blockchain, there are other use cases in the context of asset management. It makes sense. So there are several teams out there doing various experiments on some of these. And then if you are a platform provider, like the low code, no code, and pro code tools, something like Catalyst, people do expect some of the platform services like that. So we have to be experimenting with a lot of those. So that's where we are at this point.
Awesome. Thank you both. And Vijay, another question for you, which comes from Michael Bickert. How does Zoho's global infrastructure and presence provide competitive advantages and mitigate against price volatility due to inflation that may be more prominent in North America than other markets versus other tech companies that are predominantly located in the US?
That's a good question, right? If today it's hard, the US is actually riding the highest inflation of almost all countries, including India, and Indian inflation is now lower than US inflation. So if you've centered your operations here, you're going to see much more of your input costs go up. There's a lot of pressure on wages as well in the US, especially in the tech field. So in the tech field, it's impossible to hire. And the big tech giants are basically ruining the economics for everybody by making ridiculous offers to people coming out of college and so on, and then just raising the whole thing. So it becomes impossible to run a technology business if you're centered it around America, unless you have kind of strategies that Raj was talking about, like moving into areas where you can have an impact as well as get more loyal staff. In most of the tech centers here, I think people just switch. Switching is part of the norm. That's how people think. So yes, so if you had, I think we have a bit more of an insurance because we have operations around the world, but that also means we're exposed to everything that's happening on the global front, right? So we hopefully things will tend to balance out a bit, but we do have some insurance for 2 or 3 reasons. One is we're not completely dependent on operations in any one country. Our largest operations are in India, and we have experience dealing with that. The second thing is our choice of investments too. We moved away from places where we go to high inputs and places where we compete directly with other companies for anything, for all kinds of inputs. We've backward integrated in many ways, not just in technology, even in things like construction, so that we control our own input costs more and more as we go. So these are decisions we've made in all aspects of the business that you will never see. But that's so that we control our input costs as much as we can. And you can see the world doing that. You can see Intel doing that. All the big companies are wisening up to this and moving further back into their chain so they control the input costs. So that is probably the biggest strategy that we are undertaking to have a better handle on our own input costs.
And that point, just wanted to add an example on the point that Vijay made on the input costs. Just to put an example, today when we pay very, very close attention to those input costs. If you look at our data center expense, or how much do we pay for software in our data center, why do we do everything on our own? And dare I say, it's actually lowest in the SaaS space. But if you look at if you're a typical SaaS provider, you'll probably go deploy it in AWS and maybe use an Oracle database and maybe some other web server and then some other NoSQL database, and keep adding. You keep adding that infrastructure. So in other words, your input cost is going to be the cost of the software plus profit margin of every other vendor you have in your data center. And that big, so which means it bloats up your input costs. And if you have 10 or 20 providers providing the software or hardware for your data centers, that bloats up your input costs. In our case, we have eliminated all of these. We own our databases, we own most of the software. I would say 95+% of the software we run in there. That means we control our destiny because we control our input costs. So that's where such an important point, that people underestimate the amount of engineering that goes into it. That is the reason we often say, don't look at us as a software company. We are really a technology company.
That's great. Thank you both. And I will ask you this next one, Raju, from Andre Hudon. Canada is doing well. We could do even better once our Canadian Zoho data center opens up. Any date for this great and important future milestone for Canada?
Sure. We were hoping to have a data center ready this year. And what we are doing is we are setting up a small, I would say maybe, lack of a better word, proof of concept, where we are deploying our sister division managed engine applications in Canada. We already picked data centers. We have two of them, one in Montreal, the other one is in Toronto. So we are deploying some basic infrastructure. We'll be starting with our managed engine products. Now, if everything goes well, we are hoping that 2022 will be the year. Now, why is there a delay? The semiconductor shortage and the server shortage is hitting us. And if barring that and barring some of those delays on that front, we are ready to go from that. So I'm really hoping that 2022 will be the year where we have our data centers in Canada up and running. But then these uncertainties due to semiconductor shortage will hurt us, because some of the input costs, in this case server costs, went up by 3 to 5x. So again, all of these are something that we have to closely watch, but we are moving as fast as we can. So we'll start with managed engine. We'll get those running in coming months, and we are hoping that sometime maybe mid to late next year we'll have some positive news on that.
That's great news for our Canadian partners. Vijay, did you have a note?
Thank you. One point I wanted to make, which will give you a sense in how we are looking at long term, and this really is a reflection of how Sridhar thinks. He looks at the biggest aspect of our long-term competitiveness is how productive we are. How much can we do with the same number of people? How is it that we can run a company with only 10,000 people, whereas a company that's doing e-signature alone often has 5,000 or 6,000 people, right? So his whole notion is on productivity. So that means the technology and the frameworks to drive productivity as well. We have, as many of you know, we have some projects in the works to revamp the way we actually even build and deliver software. Sridhar himself is leading one of these initiatives in the company. But I'm sharing that with you because that is the mindset of looking in 10 years from now, how can we be far more productive in building software, number one. Number two, how can we build software with people who don't need to be super highly skilled, because the technologies and the frameworks help them do that. So that's the mindset that Sridhar is pushing in the company. In fact, he's spending a lot of his time these days thinking about that, the competitiveness in 10 years from now, when we will have all this pressure build up even more and software is stealing everything else, right? So how do we keep continuing to drive up productivity in ways that other companies will struggle? So that's a fundamental aspect. For him, that's the most strategic aspect of what we do. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you so much, Vijay. Well, we have time for one more question. I know it seems crazy, like we just started, but we had over 30 questions come in. So we'll ask one more, and then hopefully we'll be able to reach out to the rest that still had questions. But I think this is a question that a lot of partners would have. So Vijay, I will ask you to answer this one. Any thought towards partner commissions going beyond 4 years, but at a reduced rate? Even after 4 years, clients still make a lot of big changes and require support. As consultants, we need these long-term clients, but it feels like Zoho doesn't prioritize retention like partners do.
Okay, that's a good and fair question. As with anything else, I can see all the claps coming up on my screen.
It had a lot of likes, so we had to make sure.
I didn't get any claps for my answer. But in any event, I think I think it's a good, fair question. As with anything else, right? This is something we have to continue to look and evaluate and see what makes sense. What do we want to incentivize the things we want, right? So if people are going to, we want long-term behavior to behave in a certain way, we need to incentivize it. That said, I will also let you know that we apply the same standards to partners. In fact, even stricter standards to our own sales teams, right? Our sales teams are not commissioned for 4 years. So your partners enjoy a much longer run on the revenue stream and on the commission stream than our own salespeople, our own account managers do. So that's just so you know. But this is one of the things we'll continue to look at. It'll be in conjunction with other things we'll also look at in the commission structure. Maybe there's duration, maybe there's types of revenue, all the other stuff that we need to look at and evaluate. Ongoing, it is something we've been thinking. So very legitimate question. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And actually, you answered that a lot quicker than I thought you would. So I will ask one more, and actually I can take this one. Eunice asks, what is the plan to improve the relation between Zoho partner teams and partners on the day-to-day basis? For example, one-on-one meetings, discussions on better ways of marketing, discussion about difficult use cases, etc. So as I mentioned earlier, we will have more events specifically dedicated to partners, more resources. We are working on our plans for 2022. So be on the lookout for big changes and a lot more support on the partner side in the coming year. And with that said, I would like to thank you both, Vijay and Raju, for your time, for your insights, and for everything that you bring to our organization. We really appreciate it. We will have a 15-minute break. As I mentioned earlier, there will be a survey linked in the comment section on the right-hand side. If you could all participate, that would be great, as it is information that will be used in the session that starts after our break. So thank you so much again, Vijay and Raju, and we will be back in 15 minutes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayra. Thanks, all partners.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Zoho Inspire event. My name is Anna Acosta, and some of you may already know me as your partner account manager. And I hope that you all have been enjoying the Zoho updates, but we definitely have more in store for you all. In this half, we will be hearing from some of our very own partners. And just as a reminder before we begin, we do have a survey for you all in the chat that we'd like for you to participate in for our upcoming session with John Mark, who is here joining us today. He has been a partner with us since 2015 as Catalyst Connect, and he'll be talking to you all about scaling your business. And thank you so much, John Mark, for joining in and talking to us about this, since you yourself have scaled to 27 employees since starting with us.
Sure, have. Thanks so much, Anna. Pleasure to connect with everyone here today. As Anna mentioned, my name is John Mark Bantock. I'm the CEO here at Catalyst Connect. And we've had the privilege of really being in the Zoho ecosystem for quite some time. I actually began my journey with Zoho as a user back in 2011 and was really using a number of the apps back in the day, and became a partner after really seeing so much value in the software that had helped my previous companies grow so much. So what I hope to do today is really just tell you a little bit about our journey as a Zoho partner and how we've been able to sustain 50% growth a year for 5+ years now, really by focusing and standardizing a lot of our processes within the practice. So with that, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the phrase, "A jack of all trades is a master of none," but you may not be familiar with the full quote, which reads, "A jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one." Now, this quote really spoke to me because us as Zoho partners, we are really thrust into this very large ecosystem, more than 45 apps, numerous industries to consult in, and it's really tempting to try to do it all. I mean, that's certainly what we did in the early days, and you can imagine, as I'm sure you've experienced yourselves, it can create quite a headache. For us, getting started, revenue was everything. We took a shotgun approach. Any customer was a good customer, and certainly when you're getting started, you have to begin somewhere. This is a little short-sighted, or at least it was for us to begin with, because we ended up really getting a very broad mix of clients across various industries, different client cultures that really requested everything across numerous apps, some of which we had never worked in before. And we really had this yes man mentality where we would really endeavor to meet all clients' needs and try to be their everything across all industries and all apps. Now, this led to a few problems. There are some good problems. We love solving problems, but it also led to some problem clients, not focusing on particular industry verticals or workflows, apps, really left us with this myriad of apps, processes, industry trends that we had to keep up with. And as we did larger implementations, what we found is that we started to acquire these marriages, these clients that really depended on us for support to run their operations. And increasingly, we had our senior consultants get tied to these clients, which made it difficult to take on new customers. We also recognized the need for a support department and increasingly trying to balance supporting existing clients while making room to bring on new clients. Overall, this really led to a few problems with scaling for us. First of all, we needed better back office support. With more consultants and developers, we needed a marketing department, specific sales teams. We needed help with accounting and HR. This all increased our overhead. Naturally, we had to increase rates to support that overhead. Now, an unexpected circumstance of increasing our rates was higher expectations from the clients. If you're billing at $50 an hour versus $150, you're going to have very different expectation from the client in terms of your expertise and your efficiency with the work that you do. Now, a repercussion of having higher expectations is that we needed to bring on more senior employees, have better recruiting methodologies and training. This led to longer lead times to get a consultant up to speed where they could be profitable. It also meant that we needed to have good standard operating procedures so we could train and scale with our employees. And this was very tough to do if you're trying to do everything. The final thing that we really encountered was scheduling conflicts with a number of different consultants and developers consulting across small projects, large projects, a number of different industries that have different cycles. We were left with so many variables that made it challenging to really match our team's capacity with client needs across both support, small implementations, and large-scale implementations. So, man, I hope I'm not painting a grim picture here. It's easy to identify all the problems, but the good thing is that we have all the opportunity in the world here within the Zoho ecosystem. And what I've found is that the path to success really starts with defining what it means to be successful. And I have been a victim of indecision for many of our early years, where I didn't really want to commit to an ecosystem, a particular strategy. And it really left us unfocused and kind of meandering across multiple paths and not being able to really bring everyone on the same page. In the early days, it worked. With a small, nimble team, it was sustainable. Everyone was highly engaged, and we had the enthusiasm to figure out each new app. And as we grew, it became harder to bring that same level of enthusiasm and commitment with a whole team. And I had a really great conversation with Vijay a couple years ago out in Pleasanton. And we chatted about, strategically, how should we as a partner network fit in with Zoho? How can we succeed? And I really took his advice to heart when he mentioned that we should be going deep, focusing on solutions and not features. And this made me realize that we had brought with us a strong background in web development. We originally started out as a marketing agency focusing on advertising, search engine optimization, website development. And we still had a number of those fringe services that honestly became quite distracting. We couldn't really focus all of our training and our support and our processes to focus on the Zoho product suite. And With that realization, we really doubled down in realizing that who we need to be is the best Zoho partner. There's so much to do within Zoho that we found that a lot of these other ecosystems that we're trying to dabble in were really dilutive for our core focus and our core competency. And we decided to drop all of those additional services and really hone in on the Zoho product suite, while certainly keeping an awareness of what else is out there, because there are always integrations that we need to do. And let's face it, Zoho isn't going to be the end all be all for every client. And we need to recognize where they should look elsewhere, but know the Zoho product suite very deeply for particular solutions, so that we can try to keep everything in-house and bringing them to an efficient and effective solution. So my takeaways over the last couple of years, as we've continued to accelerate our growth, is really setting expectations, first of all, with yourself as a business leader. Where do you want to take your firm? What is your identity? What is the legacy that you want to leave? As I mentioned, for us, it's being the best Zoho partner that we can be. And in doing so, we really have to take a look at how we're going to do that for our clients, starting to focus on specific industries and solutions. And I'll chat a little bit more in depth about those solutions to industry pain points, as opposed to implementing technology for the sake of having a fancy feature. The next thing, once you've defined who you want to be, is making sure that you're building a team to support that vision. Understanding what players you need on the field and what roles they're going to have, and making sure that you're not giving them too many positions to play where they can't do their part really well. And finally, knowing what your value is that you're bringing to your clients into the ecosystem, the team that's going to deliver it. You got to make sure that you're setting the right expectations with your clients, that you can't be everything, but you're here to be a partner, and learn to say no, but also make sure that you have a great network of other consultants that you can refer out to really bring the client the best in class support that they need across their whole tech stack. So for us, it really came down to where we had done the most implementations, with more than, probably a couple thousand projects under our belt now. We really took a look at the industries that we had the most depth and where we had the most success from our implementations. And this came down to professional services, healthcare, and education. Now, that isn't to say that we don't consult across other industries. It's just that our core focus is really on these industries, and the types of projects that we like to take on from consulting capacity. We really focus on these verticals so that we can enhance our game plans, our strategies, our vertical solutions for these industries, and building some momentum where we're not trying to reinvent the wheel every time we go into an implementation. We can capitalize on some proven strategies, workflows, automations, custom functions that are well documented, so we can build on them each time. The other thing that we recognize is that we can't be an expert at every application. Now, going back to my opening quote, with the advent of Zoho One and us needing to at least have a familiarity with all of these apps is very important. As a Zoho consultant, the customer has this expectation, at least I feel, that we should have a good working knowledge of most apps, at the very least an awareness of what they do and don't do, and other partners that go deep in them. This way we can really take a look at, for our specific industry verticals, what apps and processes, workflows are going to support that industry's use cases, specialize in those applications, have an awareness of how other products can help support that, but may not be a core focus. So one of the key areas that we then led to is developing our secret sauce. I think that it's fairly standard to go and seek out some industry expertise and learn how a product works and start consulting in that space. It's another thing to then differentiate your offerings and really go deep in differentiating how your solution is the best for a particular client vertical. And for us, leveraging our experience in customer engagement and sales and marketing, we really went deep into customer portals and customer engagement. And we looked to differentiate our vertical solutions by really focusing on solving some of those client engagement pieces. And by understanding these verticals very deeply, we shifted from implementing features of a standard pipeline or sending out an agreement to taking a look at workflows and how that industry operates. What are their pain points? Where are their bottlenecks? And looking to solve problems in an efficient and standardized way by drawing on our frameworks of what previous implementations have worked really well. This started to have a bit of a ripple effect in allowing us to start to scale and standardize things, because we didn't have to reinvent the wheel every time we were meeting a problem. We could draw from our library of custom functions, our standardized workflows, our previous recordings and documentation, and we could really use that as a baseline starting point for a lot of our clients, and then consult on top of it, or better yet, really train the client to be able to tweak and augment that implementation so that they can really take ownership of the software and not need as much hand-holding, which then opens up room for you to bring on new clients. So going down this road really opened up some capacity now where we weren't putting a lot of time into learning new apps, new industries, and we could endeavor to really productize what we were very good at. And this led to our secret sauce, customer engagement through customer portals. As we know, Zoho has some great customer portals that are specific to each app. But with the advent of Zoho One and clients increasingly using multiple apps, we saw the need in our solutions to really connect a lot of these different workflows and processes with a unified customer portal. Now, in the early years, we built these customer portals from scratch, and they were expensive. We were looking at 30 grand to build a custom web app that integrated numerous apps and provided that unified interface for customers or stakeholders to interact with the clients. We, having opened up some capacity on our developer bench, having been more efficient in vertical solutions, we could take that time to really build product. And we have developed Z portals as a unified client portal builder for multiple Zoho apps. And this was a key differentiator where we could now incorporate that client engagement piece as a far more unified solution for clients. That's really helped round out a value-based approach for our implementations and not really just trading time for dollars and implementing features. So in summary, by specializing in these industries and gaining some momentum with some of our previous frameworks, apps, scripts, and case studies to draw from, we can really start to put ourselves out there as a thought leader in these spaces. We can focus on solutions, not features, and we can be very efficient and impactful with our implementations. And this thought leadership and expertise really starts to drive inbound marketing, because now clients are coming to you for full solutions. We're not just another service provider implementing features. So this has segued then to how do we architect our teams to best support this structure. And as I mentioned earlier, you got to make sure that you're being fair to your employees, that you're only giving them one job. And we broke out our architecture into a sales department. Sales and marketing really looks to screen clients to identify if they qualify for one of our templated vertical solutions. And on the left-hand side, those vertical solutions are far more straightforward to implement. We can have a project manager lead it and a junior developer implement it, because it's a tried and true implementation. And we have all of our thought leadership and IP already developed in the how-to videos, the training documentation, and the workflows were really done up front. On the other side of the spectrum, we have our consulting clients, and it's really important that we don't lose touch with the industry and become complacent and just sell what we've always sold. We need that consulting arm to be creative, to challenge ourselves, to keep relevant with industry trends. And the consulting division really works with those clients that may not fit into a standardized vertical, but they could be adjacent. They could be in the same industry, but have some unique needs. And those folks go over to our solution architect, who will really endeavor to understand those pain points very deeply and understand those objectives, develop more comprehensive, unique solutions that then need to be quarterbacked by a consultant, someone that has the project management experience and depth, but also has the experience on the technology side to get creative in developing new solutions. And typically we need to have senior developers implement those types of projects because they are more complex. We haven't done them before, and it's going to take some real engineering to perhaps develop those solutions. The advantage of having this arm is it's almost an R&D arm that's paid for by the client to then enhance our vertical solutions. So this is where we really want to make sure that we're being true to ourselves and our focus and going deep in the industries that we want to cover, so that we can capitalize on these consulting engagements to then enhance our standardized offerings where we can reach more scale. And then finally, we have our support department, which really has two sides: the productized support and the more retainer-based account management support for our enterprise clients. So overall, every company's revenue mix is going to look different. I thought I would share this as perhaps a starting point to fuel some thought for you guys for 2022 as we look ahead to establish our goals, our vision, and how we're going to be a better partner to our clients and to the community in 2022. So this is roughly our breakdown of our revenue goal for 2022. At our foundation, we really have our support department supporting the hundreds of clients that we have implemented in the past. And this is a great revenue base. It's a lock, and we know that we can count on that base of revenue. We then have our consulting division, those new exciting projects where we get to be creative. And this typically is a tougher division for us to grow because it requires senior consultants and developers that take time to train. So this is certainly a smaller arm of ours that won't grow as fast as, say, our vertical solutions, which is really templatizing those implementations for specific industries or verticals. And this we're targeting at about 35% of our revenue for 2022, and that will hopefully accelerate over time. And then, of course, we have the licensing component. Now, this is a very important component for us to make sure that we have some of that cushion to invest in providing that inevitable free support that we have to a certain extent for our clients. It allows us to take those margins to invest in better training materials and support where we can augment Zoho's help materials to show how certain features can benefit our industry solutions. And we've really doubled down in that strategy and using a lot of our time as a team to invest in productizing our service offerings as much as possible, which is creating momentum to be more efficient on the implementation side. So in summary here, the big takeaways for us as an organization is that we really need to focus on solutions, not features. We really want to be a good partner to our clients, not just a vendor. And that means really understanding them well and going deep in their pain points and their objectives. We also have learned that we need to have the discipline to say no. And just because we can do something doesn't mean that we should. Writing complex custom functions that are automating everything, yeah, maybe pretty slick and you could give yourself a pat on the back. But at the end of the day, is this a usable system? Is it moving the needle for the client? Is it something that they understand and can leverage to be more efficient? Finally, a big takeaway for us is that we want to be collaborative. We want to work with other partners, understand where their strengths are, convey where our competencies are, and refer business back and forth. Since we've started doing this, It's been a tremendous boon to our efficiency as we begin to work increasingly with the clients that are within our wheelhouse, that we have the expertise for, and those distracting clients and implementations that would ordinarily drain energy and resources, we refer out to someone who would gladly welcome that use case. And so I would really like to encourage everyone to take that to heart as we take a look as a community where our expertise lies and how we can best support each other. So if you haven't already, please head on over to the chat and click on this link. I'm going to give everyone who hasn't had a chance to fill this out a minute here to go through and do so. I think this will be a great takeaway exercise for us to really just see as a community where our expertise lies. See what industries we have a lot of depth in, what product areas we are expert in. Perhaps there are areas where there are no experts, and that could be an opportunity for us as a community to fill in those gaps and better support each other. So again, please head on over there. I'm going to pause my screen here for a sec and switch over to the results, and we can take a look at this together. Okay, so we still have some responses coming in, and I'll be sure to connect with the partner team and send out some more aggregated results here at the end of the session. So please do continue to fill this out. It'll be very useful information for us to, as a community, see where we can fill in some of these holes. So looking at the results here from this first one, we can see that we actually have a pretty good spread across some of these industries. There are certainly some industries here that we can see that there is no one who deems themselves an expert. So perhaps there's some opportunity to dive in there and gain some depth. I would say that we're really looking to highlight and have a strong base of proficiency and experts across most industries. And those industries where we have no proficiency or experts is definitely something that we should take a look at filling up. And perhaps Zoho can help us with identifying how many Zoho clients are in some of these industries so we can match our industry depth with the clients that Zoho is attracting. If we take a look at some of the app familiarity, obviously no surprise that everyone deems themselves as proficient or expert in the CRM. But take a look at some of these other apps. Of course, some are newer, and we may have not had the time to dive into it, but it doesn't look like there's much depth on contracts. Similarly, I think that there are definitely some opportunities here to go deeper into security. I know that's been a common theme with a lot of our enterprise clients, and really focusing on security across Zoho's technologies in working with roles, profiles, permissions, password security, approval processes, and blueprints. I think that there's a lot of depth that we can go into there as a community. And looking at a lot of that workflow management, we may need some more depth in that. So I will aggregate these responses and send it out, but I think a big takeaway here is that we actually have a pretty good base of experts across most products, and that is great. There's always a partner that we can leverage and take a team-based approach to our implementations. And I will work with the partner team to see how we can publish these results, and if you have any specific apps, enhancements, your secret sauce, your customer portals, your workflow engines, as I'm really excited. I hope that Massimo introduces that in the next session. Little tools that we can help our partner community and our clients be more efficient. So With that, I'm going to turn things back over to Anna and Massimo, and really looking forward to Massimo's chat on how he's been able to go deep in some vertical solutions and building out some really helpful tools for the partner community and clients. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely, and thank you for your presentation and insight, John Mark. I see that we are getting some questions in the chat or in the questions module. We do have a Q&A session later in the event, so we'll be answering a couple of those then. But I did see a lot of partners were really interested in that topic, John Mark, so thank you for that. And while Massimo is setting up, I'd like to formally introduce him. Massimo is from Blueroot. He's also been a partner with us since 2015, and he'll be talking to us about focusing on your niche. All the way from the very international lands of Ontario, Canada, let's welcome Massimo.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Before I start, can I get some claps in the chat? I feel like a streamer now. If you can see my deck. I just want to make sure everyone can see it. Oh, lots of claps. Awesome. Engaged audience. Love it. Okay. First off, I want to start with John Mark had a slide there on his portal. If you haven't checked out his portal yet, do it. It is amazing. We're using it as a company, selling it to clients. Do check it out. Okay. So as was mentioned, I'm talking a little bit today about finding a niche and transitioning to a vertical. So there will be some similarities to John Mark's presentation, to be honest. But overall, I'm going to talk a little bit more niche on our product and what we've done. So as was mentioned, my name's Massimo. And a little bit about me. I like telling people about me. I like talking in general. So started the business 2014. So around the same time as John Mark. I am Canadian. I know there's other Canadians here. So I'm one of them. Huge basketball fan. If anyone in the chat ever wants to send me a gift in relation to basketball or just send me a funny basketball thing, it'd be great. I'm proud to say I was alive during the time when the Raptors won a chip. And if there's anyone from Philadelphia here, I apologize for that image. I love it, but you might not if you're from Philly. And I'm a big believer in keeping things simple. So you'll see that a lot in my presentation. That's really the way kind of I am and my team is. And so you'll see that. And I like to say I've been a Zoholic since 2014. I'll tell you a little story how the company came to fruition and all that. That other picture there, that's actually the last Zoholics I was at. I believe it was in Austin. And the gentleman there to the left, well, whatever. The other gentleman in the picture, his name's Tom. He's a co-founder of our vertical. And so he's really integral in this whole thing. I'll talk a little bit about him. And John Mark talked about finding great talent. And so that's a picture of both of us. Hopefully we'll get together again at some point at Zoholics. So a little history about Blueroot. So it was founded in 2014 while I was in university. I went to business school. I wasn't really vibing with a lot of my classmates going into certain industries. I wasn't a bank guy. I wasn't a marketing guy. I couldn't really figure out what I was. So started doing some cold calling and just used my technical ability and my problem solving to just start solving problems for small business. And truthfully, we would help any industry, right? So we were generalists, just like John Mark said, and I'll talk about that transition. But yeah, that's how we started. And in 2015, decided to go all in on Zoho. And it's kind of a funny story because I honestly didn't know about Zoho. A client of mine, who is still a client, showed me it. I was actually selling Salesforce at the time. And I fell in love with it, decided to go all in and become a partner. And there's a little shout out to Ian there, if he's on this call. He gave me a shot when I was a young gun. I remember giving him a presentation on what I can do with Zoho. And I could tell the look on his face that I was eager, but he wasn't sure if I could actually do it. And he gave me a shot, and here we are. 2015 to 2017 were really interesting years. And I just wanted to bring those up quickly because a mentor of mine, his name's Bob, really said to me early on to always be curious and to also treat those years. He basically said our business is really lucky. We get paid to solve problems and unique problems all the time, right? And so he said, treat these years and start finding some patterns. Maybe you can specialize in some way. And at that point in time, I didn't even think about that. Like I was just like, whatever, I'll do something for a check, right? And so those were really interesting years. And so we started 5 or 6 years ago, starting to try and find trends. And in 2018, we found some verticals that were really interesting to us. Tom joined the team at that time too. He's very engineering focused, amazing at building. And so he came to the team and we started pushing these verticals. And the two that we did they're called Blue Mortgage. Our company's called Blue Root. So Blue Mortgage and Blue Insurance. So we actually brought out two at once, and I'll talk about some of the learns there. Some were quite painful about that. But so 2018 we launched those. 2019. Now 2021, where we're at, we have 800 users on the mortgage product, about 780, and then 20 on the insurance. So I'm giving away a bit of the story there, but you can see which one's more successful. So what that means is we have 800 paying users on these applications, paying us a monthly recurring fee built on top of Zoho. So I'll talk a little bit about how we got there. That's the whole point of today. But I'm just kind of building the framework before I hop in. So where are we now? We're a product first company with 800 users on Blue Mortgage and a growth rate of around 40 to 60 new users a month. So we're accelerating that a little bit. And the really cool thing, and honestly, what I'm really proud of, is 95% of these clients don't even know what Zoho is. Like, we are now bringing leads and business to Zoho, right? And so our marketing is now totally focused on our mortgage vertical, our insurance vertical, et cetera, and we're bringing new clients in. So it's been a fun learning experience. Similar to what John Mark was saying, our revenue split right now is 50-50, product and service. So we still do consulting, or we call it professional services. So I'll talk about that as well. One big thing is we're now a sales and support engine. There's less custom work. So we're doing less and less custom work, and I'll talk about that as one of our key tips to moving this way. So some of you may be asking, what does product first mean? At a high level, recurring revenue. Very important to build your business as you keep growing. I mean, Zoho could probably talk to you for hours about this. Built for scale. So we're building apps and features that are scalable, not just one-offs. And focused on a niche or a vertical. So I put that little quote at the bottom to stay focused, right? And so this is where we're at now. Little slide about this Blue Mortgage product. I'm not going to hop into it and show you it. You can check it out if you want. The website is bluemortgage.ca. Canadian.com is very expensive right now, but we're working on it. Long story short, Canada's premier mortgage CRM. And what I mean by that is we have 4 of the top 5 brokers in Canada on this application, right? We're the only CRM to integrate with all the Canadian banks for mortgage transactions. So we spent about 18 months building middleware between the banks and the CRM. There's also another piece in it. It's a little technical, but the short story is we're the only ones that do that. We move around 20 billion a year of mortgage volume through its pipes. We're now tracking that through our CRM, and so we can see the mortgage volume passing through, what types of mortgages and stuff like that. So that's been a really interesting shift, and we're really proud of that. And essentially what it is at the highest level, it's a CRM software that comes with built-in automations, integrations with the banks and stuff, and drip campaigns. Here in Canada, I know there's a lot of Americans on the call, we renew our mortgages every 3 to 5 years. So it's very important to have renewal drip campaigns so that the bank doesn't take the business, the broker can take it. So that's a high level of the product. And so it's come a long way. And really why I'm here today is to talk about, try to distill 5, 6 tips, I think I have 6 here, of how we got here. And try to distill them to a point where you can ingest them, take them away. And then near the end of this presentation, John Mark alluded to, we've actually built a really cool new tool that we want to show all of you that is helping our business tremendously, and I think it'll help yours and Zoho clients. So let's go through these tips. So number 1, look inwards, change your mindset, look for patterns, be wise about cash flow, begin marketing, and learn from mistakes. So I'm going to go through each of these on a slide here. So number 1, look inwards. If you can't tell already, I kind of am just kind of like high level thinker. I don't go really deep into the details. And so where I started hitting serious walls, and our company reflected this, was when we would get into these very complex creator jobs, right? Or very complex integrations with ERPs. I don't personally have the skill set for that. Our team wasn't built around that. We had developers, but they were more focused on other things. So the first point is, what are you good at? Like, you have to look inwards and not go against the grain, right? Like, I'm more of a sales and support person, and the company kind of reflected that. And we had a lot of people at the company that were really good at that. And so we would encourage clients to use Zoho almost out of box, right? Number 2, and John Mark alluded to this, money in the tough scopes look good. And I get it when you're starting, or even when you're bigger. I mean, 10 grand is 10 grand, 50 grand is 50 grand, whatever the scope is, it looks good. But if it's going to hurt your team, if it's going to take you off track for what you're doing, don't take it. The opportunity cost is way too high. And I have another couple slides where I talk about that. The last one, just to make everyone feel better, is there's always a niche you can fill. So today I'm talking a lot about a product or a vertical, right? So it's basically a white labeled Zoho CRM. But your niche could be, you're basically the point of John Mark's survey, right? Like you could be the creator guy and we all send you creator deals, or you could be the guy that is really good or gal at forestry. It didn't look like any of us know that industry. I didn't, I filled out the survey, but so there might be some niches for you. And the point here is to look inwards. Don't try to do something just purely on demand. That was a massive mistake we made with the insurance product. That industry is much more challenging tech-wise. And we jumped into it because there was some demand and we do have clients on it, but we realized very early on that it isn't our skill set to build that complicated tech with all those complicated integrations and all this middleware and all. It became very complicated. Our mortgage product, if you're going to check it out, is known as a very simple product that works very well. And so I'll talk on that a little bit more. So once you've looked inwards, and for me and for our team, it was kind of like, let's keep things simple. Let's use Zoho like it's meant, customize it for the industry, build some key integrations. Then you really got to change your mindset. And again, John Mark alluded to this, like, number one, choose your niche and know you're not solving other problems. It's hard. It's been really hard for me, and I'm lucky to have an amazing team around me that pushes me, honestly, because I've probably been the biggest one that hasn't been great at this at times, where I see a scope come in because we still do custom work. You saw 50% of our revenue is still custom. And I'll go, oh yeah, I think we could do that. It's not too bad or whatever. Like, you have to now start thinking that you're solving bigger problems within your niche. You got to start focusing on that. Be all right with turning away business. I mean, just in the last, 8 months, we've sent 200 users worth of deals off to partners. Probably some of them are on the call here. So we are constantly moving deals away from ourselves if it doesn't fit with what we're doing. And that's extremely hard to do. And I talk about it on the cash flow page, how to prep for that and all of that. But you just got to be all right with that. And it's funny, like, you think there's one deal that we passed off. I mean, and me and this partner, I won't mention his name, but we joke about it. And it's like, we passed off this deal maybe a year ago. And like, as we got into the deal, we quickly realized within 3 calls that it wasn't going to be a fit for us. We had a chat with him a couple of weeks ago. He's still building this solution and he's built an amazing tool, but it was just so over our head. Like, it's creator times 10 type thing. And so we look back and there's a sigh of relief. Yes, we missed out on tens of thousands and 100 users and all of that, but it allowed us to grow our business the way we're wanting to go. So keep that in mind, the long-term vision. Like, it's going to hurt when you turn that business away. You might feel silly, but you're not silly, okay? One thing that I say you should do, build some easy questions. So we have those internally. Like, we ask ourselves when new deals come in, does the client want to use this pretty close to out of the box? If yes, boom, we're interested. Is the client interested in training and support? Interested. Are they looking for custom integrations with ERPs or Creator? Not interested. So we made a few key questions where now we can qualify people over email, honestly, or just with a 20-minute call and just be blunt with them and say, listen, we love what you're doing. We're not your guys. And the name of the game here is you become less of a problem solver at a micro level. So you're not thinking of a deluge function that'll solve this one piece for this one client. You're now prioritizing things and thinking more macro. Like, when we built that integration with all the banks, we had to think very macro, and we had to think, okay, at that time, I think we were 400 or 500 users, 300-400. How are we going to roll this out to 300 or 400 users? We started getting into extensions and all that fun stuff in Zoho. So you have to be much more macro thinking. And honestly, it's a lot of fun, but you have to change your mindset. And at least for me, and I think a lot of other partners I've talked to, coming into this game, your mindset is not this. A lot of partners are generalists, and as Vijay, including what we used to be, as Vijay and John Mark said, you have to change that. So the other piece here is to look for some patterns, right? And this might seem obvious, but if you're doing the product, if you're building a product, or even if you're working in a niche, start looking for some patterns. So the one we used, at least when we started looking for some, is like, have we done 3 installs that are pretty close to the same, right? And in the mortgage industry at that time, we had done like 15. And we were lucky enough to have done it for a couple very large clients. And so we started seeing these patterns. And the patterns are pretty easy to find. You probably already have experienced patterns and you just haven't jumped in. And so that's part of this deck today, to say it can be done, but look for patterns. Ask the client. like this was something I learned when we first started seeing some patterns. I'm like, oh, I want to ask this client if other people will be interested in this, but I'm worried that he or she's not gonna tell me because they're competitive. I was extremely surprised. Like they will openly say, if you pose it the right way and say, listen, is this something that your industry needs? Like, am I noticing a gap here? Like, could this help you? If you have those one-on-one conversations with people, they give you a lot of info, at least in my experience. And we've asked a lot of people. So don't be afraid to ask them. They will solidify those patterns for you pretty quickly. Research the market and also the online competition. So we did a lot of research before we jumped in with the mortgage solution to see what other players in the market were there. And I mean, me and Tom say this all the time. I mean, there was luck involved. Like, we're lucky that in Canada, the mortgage software competitive nature or whatever, it wasn't great. There were a few softwares out there. They were really old. They weren't advancing. They were just letting it die off. So there is part of that, but do the research, because then you can get lucky if you do the research, right? And the other piece with this research is not just what apps are out there, but also the online competition. You should sniff out if there's people from other countries bidding on AdWords or SEO strategies. We did a lot of that early on just to see how hard and expensive it would be to start getting out there, because we're very inbound focused. We do a lot of marketing. We don't really do outbound sales for these 800 users we've got. Here's a tip here. You're already halfway there, honestly, at least in our experience, because you're built on Zoho. Like, the fact that you're built on Zoho, you've probably smoked half the competition. And so that was something we use as a benefit. I kind of went quick over our Blue Mortgage logo, but you can see in the bottom it says powered by Zoho. We're very proud of that. We tell clients about that very easily in all kinds of calls. We can say, oh, we're built on the industry's best tech. These guys advance things so amazingly. We tell the story of Zoho. So keep that in mind, that you're already halfway there competitive wise, at least what we found. Okay. This one I want to spend a bit of time on because it's hard. And this was something that we struggled with. We had to make a conscious decision, I guess we could say, right? So very early on when we started the business, for the first 4 years of the business, it was me and a few other staff. It wasn't very large. We're at 10 staff now. And I took minimal salary every single year. I kept so much in retained earnings because of what happened with that mentor I had, where he said, like, start looking for patterns, like it could be something one day, all of that. And so we made a conscious decision to do that. And we still try to do that. We've upped our investment quite a bit. But I would just say, be humble, be smart with your cash. Like, unless you're going to go out and raise a bunch of money, give away 80 or 90% of your company and go that way, which people do, you're going to have cash on hand. I mean, Vijay talked about that earlier. Like, last year's profit is this year's R&D or marketing or whatever. You have to start doing that. Don't just drain the company personally and pay yourself and all of that. You can do that, but it's going to be hard to build a vertical or a niche without external investment, right? And it kind of balances here, because you're still trying to, don't just say yes for the money of a job, but you're trying to be cash conscious. So it's not an easy one, right? But I think the rule of thumb here is to keep at least 3 months of burn on hand. And with the first 4 years of the business, we kept a lot more than that. Now the business costs were a lot less. Like, we could go a whole year and not have another dollar come in when we first started this product thing. I think it was actually more than, I think it was like 15 months. So like, we kept a lot of cash on hand with this in mind. And honestly, it took 3 or 4 years to build that cash. So this isn't an overnight thing, right? And we're in it for the long haul. We're like Zoho. We don't want to sell. We don't want external investment, all that fun stuff, right? So start thinking this way. Start thinking long-term. Don't think, oh, we had a great year, let's drain it, pay everyone big money and all of that. Start changing your attitude with the cash. Products take time. We're 2.5 years in, 3 years in, and it's still not technically profitable, right? Based on the staff that we have severe revenue coming in from it, like half our business is revenue. I actually think it just might have hit profitable, but the short story here is it takes time for these things, right? And so you got to keep at it, and that's why this cash reserve is so important. A tip here, use service as a funding source. I think John Mark mentioned that the consulting division, although it is harder to grow, it can be used as an R&D center. It can be used as a funding source. We kind of see it as an incubator of talent, to be honest. We put people in there and we start training them up. and then they might move to the product, or they might move into another division. So we have 2 divisions in the company, similar to John Mark, the product and the service. And so we see it as a benefit. Okay, this one's fun and honestly challenging as well. Just get in there, just start marketing. I mean, we struggled with this early on. We were trying to just tweak our website in all these different ways and try to make it perfect. And one of the things in marketing is it's never perfect. In everything, not just marketing, right? And so get a landing page up of your product or niche. And it's kind of funny because I remember the time when we brought up the landing page and the product, literally when we released it with the landing page, it was simply a CRM, customized pipeline, customized workflow rules, customized drip campaign, and that's basically it for the mortgage industry, right? So it made sense to them. And we got a landing page up, and I remember we were just like so excited when leads would come in. We did a lot of AdWords. So the point here is our product wasn't anything compared to what it is now. And we got a landing page up and we started bringing business in, right? And so just get it up there and give it a fair 6 to 12 months. Like everything here, and it's interesting, and this is why we love Zoho so much. Like none of this 2 years pump and dump type thing if you're doing this the way we're doing it, right? So give it a fair shot, put some AdWords behind it and pivot them, like watch them, right? And don't just spend money needlessly, but watch how the AdWords are performing. Don't forget about referrals. That's massive. We had some big clients early on and we asked for referrals and we grew that way. So, I mean, that's still a valuable point, whether it's vertical or not. And get in industry groups. Like there's a lot of them out there, Facebook groups or actual industry newsletters or LinkedIn groups. Like get in there and start providing some value and start talking about your app. You'll be surprised if you did the market research and there is a need, so many people are interested in your application. Brag about your customers. Like it's cool to do that. You see every website puts like logos on their homepage, right? We do too, but we also talk about it in 80% of our demos. Like every demo we have, I'm pretty sure we say, just about, hey, we have this client on this tool. Immediately changes the dynamic. So once you get a couple big fish, talk about them. Don't be scared to. It helps a lot. And the last piece, nothing is perfect. Enhance over time, right? Okay, so this is my last formal slide on this, and then I want to talk about this new app that we have coming out. So we had a lot of mistakes. So I thought we'd put this slide here to hopefully allow you to have less. When you go product or niche, you have to have amazing support. And this is totally valid, but when we brought out our product, our clients can't send tickets to Zoho anymore. Zoho doesn't know what we built. We tried it. We said, oh, go to Zoho support. We were hoping we could get a shortcut. And I mean, the Zoho support team's like, well, actually, this is very custom and it looks like can't you ask your partner, et cetera, because it was, right? So you have to be phenomenal at support. We have 2 full-time support people that just answer tickets and get on calls all day, right? And so you have to change your mindset and start thinking of more support engine. And that was a learning curve for us, right? Because from the service industry, although support was important, we could just build them, create a new scope and move on, right? Don't try too many products at once without market traction and at least one. So I talk about 2 products there. We actually technically started 4 at the same time and threw them all at the wall. And as you know, only one of them really worked and the other one, it didn't, right? And so get market traction in at least once. I'd say at the highest, go to market with 2, but I would really recommend go with 1, give it a fair shot. You've got time in this business. If you've done the market research and you've done the cash flow planning, you'll be fine. Professional service can be your biggest differentiator. I know for us, it is. It's one of them. And so people will come on our product. Those 4 of the top 5 brokers that are on our product, they're just not on our base product. They have tools built on top of the base. So our service division comes in and they love us for that. They wouldn't be clients with us if we didn't have that. And I know I'm speaking for John Mark, but I know this because he's told me you can go onto his portal and just use the out-of-box portal. Or you can actually hire Catalyst to make the out-of-box portal 5x, right? So don't discount your professional service. It's still important and you should still have a team around it. And it makes clients stickier because no one, there's always clients that won't use the out-of-box you have, right? Hiring is tough. Vijay mentioned that. It's getting more and more competitive. Don't use recruiters. We got burned. And so I thought I'd just mention this. We tried 3 times with recruiters, ended up wasting a lot of money. Use referrals. It's hard. I don't have like the perfect answer with this. I'm just saying stay away from that one. Don't let pride get in the way of taking off. We were guilty of that with Blue Insurance, right? And so Blue Insurance, we held on to it for too long. The customer is always right. That you have to start learning that, especially in the product or the niche business, right? You're going to be very support driven, and you just got to know when they're paying you a recurring fee, you have to act differently than when you're doing a custom scope, and you could wipe your hands of it and say, listen, let's talk about another custom scope, right? And the last one, don't build new features without checking in. We were guilty of doing a lot of that. Very early on, we'd build really cool features on the whiteboard, and then we go to market and no one used it, right? So do the research. So those are kind of my those are kind of my high level. So I've got a few minutes here left, and I want to talk about our newest product. So one of the problems in RPS, professional services, John Mark calls it consulting, whatever you may call it, and in general was repetitive code. We kept having to write the same code over and over in deluge, right? And the speed of code changes. Clients would call us and say, hey, can you change my function that moves data from the deal module to the contact module? It's like, oh, we got to add one more field. It takes time. It takes us away from our niche and our product, right? We never had enough developer time to make small changes. We'd have to tell the client, oh, wait a week. And it's like one field in deluge, right? And we had no way for clients to make the changes on their own without distracting us from our niche. So we were always involved in very small tasks. And we wanted new ways to get recurring revenue, right? And so we came up with this product. I think it's going to blow your socks off. We really wanted to talk about it at the partner thing because it's called the Workflow Enhancement Suite. So here's some scenarios, and I'll actually show you a GIF on the next slide of how it works. And maybe, just because I'm curious, give me some claps as I go through these if you've had this. So when a deal closes, the account on the deal needs to be marked as a client. So they want you to write some custom code to move data from the deal into the client or the account when a deal closes. Or when the account address is changed, they want code that runs and updates all of the contacts, right? So let's say there's 50 contacts on the account, all of them should be updated. I see the claps. This isn't possible in Zoho without deluge, right? Or when a deal is created, you automatically want it to be renamed something. Nothing's more annoying or sometimes frustrating where you have to name the deal, right? And then clients say, oh, but can you write some deluge to rename the deal for me and put like the account name dash the contact name dash an account number? You see where I'm going with this. We built a tool that you can do this. And then the last one, which is our favorite, it's not out yet, but it's coming out next week. Whenever a deal is closed, you want it to sum up all of the deals for that account and bring that summed amount into the account. So aggregation, maybe count all the tasks, count all the phone calls, things like that. So here we go. We got really good at extensions. Hopefully you can see this GIF. We tested it 5 times, so I'm hoping this time it works. This is our tool within the workflow. So you can actually map fields without writing a spec of code from module to module. So we have 4 flows. You can map fields from, for example, a deal down to the account, a lookup, or you can map them from an account down to all its lookup records, the clients. You can also merge tag fields. So you'll see at the bottom there, the GIF, Tom's about to show us merge tagging a field. So we'll choose the deal and we'll say we want to bring in the first name in this example. So now it's going to rename the deal, new deal dash first name. And so we can move all this data from module to module. It's a drag and drop tool. You can do it in the workflows. And we've been piloting it for 3 months now with clients, right? And we are selling it in every custom scope that we have. We're using it as a tool in our toolbox saying, listen, okay, we have this tool. It's going to make your scope cheaper. And clients are actually using it to do code without us. Your support people can now do code without you. And so I could go on and on. I see all the claps. I'm glad people are excited about it. So these are the 4 flows. The bottom one, the aggregation, Trevor, our developer, showed us yesterday. It's just about to come out. And so this is, I think I have a screenshot of it. Yeah, so it's not a great screenshot, but you can kind of see we had to build workflow logic into the aggregation. So one of the cool things is you can say sum all the deals that are closed won and the type is X and bring that back onto the account. So we actually we made a workflow editor within the workflow editor. So this is a really cool tool. And as John Mark and Vijay were saying, like we're now building something that is solving many use cases, not just a simple feature, right? And so I'm not going to talk much more because I think I'm just about done. So basically, if you want to check this out, Oh, well, here, sorry, I forgot about this slide. If you haven't been sold already, let me try to sell you again. It allows implementations to be more stable, right? We're finding that a lot. Non-developers can do it, right? We sell it in all of our scopes. It's recurring revenue for you. And it allows you to focus on your product or niche, right? So that was our big thing. Like we kept getting pulled back into writing Deluge from 2 years ago. Now, if you embed this tool, the client can do it, or you could do it, but it's much faster, right? And so we built a product to enable smarter and better Zoho implementations through a low-code workflow enhancement tool. So check it out, blueroot.ca/West. We have a Zoho form there. It's early access. If you want to reach out to us, I think on one of the earlier slides, I put my cell phone number and my email. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to chat. Appreciate everyone listening to me talk for a half hour. That's rare, but I'm glad people enjoyed it. Yeah, I think it's Q&A time now. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you for that, Massimo. Thank you for such insight and advice to our fellow partners. And as you mentioned, next up, we will have our partner Q&A. We'll ask John Mark to join in. Hi, welcome back, John Mark. As a reminder to our audience, please post your questions in the questions module rather than the chat. Maybe put to all of the questions, but we will try our best to go ahead and answer those in order that they've been received. And if you'd like to ask your question live, you can request mic access, but make sure to post in your question that you want to ask your question live. And we will also be projecting the questions onto your screen, so please don't forget to exit out of the projected question at the top of the right X. So without further ado, let's move on to our first question. And I think this question was sent in for you, John Mark. So Vijay asks, thanks for an excellent and insightful presentation. Standardization drives repeatability and efficiency, which leads to productization. Do you see yourself producing more things in addition to the customer portal to fit the verticals? And will they include third-party products and services, John Mark?
Yeah, great question. Certainly a lot to unpack there. So I think that we have a number of things baking all the time here at Catalyst, and we really believe in taking an iterative approach and being creative. And we've certainly tried a lot of products and niches and features that have failed, but I don't regret a single one of them. So I think that building good product and coming up with effective. Sorry, can you guys still hear me? There was a. Okay, great. Building effective products is an iterative process, and we have failed. And knowing when to kill a product is also key. I'm sorry, I'm getting some reverb. Is everyone else experiencing that as well?
Yeah, I was, but you sound good now. I'm trying to mute myself. Let's see if that helps.
Yeah. Okay. So as Massimo mentioned, it's important to be creative. It's important to go after your ideas. It's also important to know when an idea doesn't work. We've certainly invested in products that didn't work out, and we had to be cognizant of when there wasn't a future for it and kill it. But we've always been able to lever that into the next product or idea. So yes, we certainly have a number of solutions in the works, some that relate to having better workflow planning tools for those clients that do need a custom solution. We have a great software product that we've been building that we've actually used internally now for about 4 years that helps clients really identify pain points, map out all of their processes, identify which Zoho apps or features are best positioned to meet that use case so that they know what direction to go in. It can be awfully daunting as a customer to see all 45 apps and so many features within it. They don't know where to start. And we've been incubating that planning tool for a number of years now and has been the backbone of all of our system architectures and implementation plans. So that's a big one that we have a beta out for called Architectly. And there are some other verticals that we're going very deep in. We have used some professional services engagements, and I'm talking hundreds of thousands of dollars of implementation work to create a vertical for the education space. And that's one that we're going to be working on. And so those are probably the two that are next in line. But what I've learned with the launch of Z Portals is that you have to, it's important to get started, but it's also important to have a well thought out product. And to be honest, we launched Z Portals too early. A year ago, as many of you we had reached out to saw, the product was kind of immature and buggy. It wasn't complete and it didn't quite meet all the needs. And we stopped all of our marketing, went back and honestly doubled down. We invested in a number of new developers, split it off as a completely separate brand, dedicated team, and went really deep to flesh out that solution. So it's important that when you are going to bring something to market, that it is well thought out, that you've engaged with clients, understand what they need to bring something more complete to the table.
Sorry, there seems to be some audio issues with Anna, so
Yeah.
I'll jump in and ask some questions. So I will ask you, I think this one came in for you, Massimo.
Okay.
After all the work is done and in template form, how do you approach pricing the implementation for a new client?
Okay, and maybe John Mark will have a new one. So basically, our product is a per user per month price, right? And so we basically, it's just like Zoho's. So it's very easy to price. I mean, it did take some research to see where and what we could get the price at. We've done a lot of price kind of research. That was, I probably should have mentioned that, but in the market research phase, that's what we did. Now, if you're talking more about like the people that are custom on top of our existing product, we follow a very similar tack to our professional service division, right? And so we do give better rates if you're already a product customer of ours. Yeah, I mean, ours is a per user per month price, and that's the way we're trying to go with this recurring revenue. The product I just showed you, the workflow enhancement suite's a per org cost, so it's not per user because it's like an admin toolkit thing. But again, both are just recurring revenue. Yeah.
If you don't mind, Myra, I'd like to add to that. And there was another question that actually popped up just before you asked this one, which was about really having a good standardized solution for clients, but them needing to tweak and change that. And early on, one of the approaches that we took to address that kind of modulated need for efficiency, but having some flexibility in the complete solution, was to leverage Zoho extensions. So Massimo has gone a great route in terms of using the vertical solution with a standardized cost for the whole solution. We ended up going that route for the solar and energy efficiency space, and we met that exact problem, that it was 80-90% there, but they needed something tweaked for local jurisdictions, and we didn't have the flexibility to do that for them through a full vertical solution. So we ended up modulating that functionality in extensions, and then we could piecemeal some of those components out to deploy it very efficiently, but have the flexibility to tweak and augment that as well. And we ended up ultimately doing a little bit of a hybrid where in some cases, we will do a copy customization, and they will just buy the licenses directly from Zoho. And we took a look at what an initial scope of work would have looked like if we implemented it from scratch. And to be honest, some of them were like $30,000, $40,000 implementations. And then we backed that out to say, well, how long would it really take to do a copy customization, kind of integrate this at our standard hourly rates? And we could see that we took a $40,000 implementation and could distill it down to $10,000 with just good training and massaging existing code bases in that. And that was a little bit of a hybrid where it gives us some flexibility to meet client unique needs, but also semi-productize that service work as well.
Awesome. Thank you, John Mark. I had missed that question. I will ask another question. This is anonymous. Thoughts on hourly versus project rate engagement? Massimo, if you want to start out with that one, and then John Mark, if you have any other comments.
Project. We don't do hourly. We turn away hourly. The reason for that is because we kind of have dev cycles that we go through on the product and on the service side, and it just became too complicated for the hourly. One, clients, if they've paid like a chunk of hours, at least in our experience, they would demand very quick responses and kind of break our process, or for all you Americans, process up in the in the scope. So we much prefer project based. John Mark might be different, but we actually say no to hourly. Yeah.
We went through an interesting evolution. We started off doing project-based work, and when we were doing a lot of customized implementations, that became very difficult, having the flexibility to really consult and be creative with the clients. So we actually went the opposite way for a long time and went purely hourly. But that also has its problems. And now we're seeing that as we're starting to specialize in verticals and solutions that we've implemented multiple times, we're looking at having a little bit of a hybrid where we'll have a very well-defined scope of work for kind of a baseline implementation. And that will be value-based pricing, fixed bid. But then if they want tweaks or changes on top of it, then we'll move to a more agile engagement through our support department, and that's purely hourly. And typically we'll ask a client to fund a retainer of a block of hours, and then we can be more agile with them in enhancing that baseline implementation.
And just one more point to put on that, because John, you showed a really cool chart of where your revenue should be or is or whatever. The support fee, I feel like a lot of partners here don't charge for that. I could be wrong, but at least it was news to me when I started hearing about big shots like you and other people charging for that. And I was like, pardon? Like, so we started that about a year ago. And now we don't charge hourly for that. Actually, in all of our scopes, a percentage of our scope is a support fee that they have to pay for at least a 1-year term. And clients don't even balk at it, to be honest. They actually like it. We sell it in the sense that we built this, we're your helpers. It really helped us scale up our support staff. So if you're just kind of like a one and done consultant, there's a bit more skin or whatever, meat on the bone there that you can do.
Thank you for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for elaborating on your process, Massimo.
No worries.
And
oh, I get the joke now. I missed it. Yeah.
It's an American joke.
Yeah.
John Mark, I think this one was for you. What all do you include in virtual solution?
Thank you for that.
I think he meant vertical.
And our next question.
Yeah. So a big focus of ours was really on comprehensive solutions. We don't really look at implementing Zoho as one particular product or feature. In fact, I don't think there's been an implementation that's just been with a single product in years. Most of our solutions span across multiple apps and are focused on business processes and life cycles. So if you take a look at our site, we have some what we're building out is a very robust outline for specific verticals of how we approach specific business functions. So it could be, online visitor tracking and chat with the lead engagement, lead capture workflow. And that may span across Sales IQ, Zoho Forms, and the CRM, because we are chatting with them, we're pushing in visitor info to the CRM. They may be filling out a form in addition to the chat. And then when they get to the CRM, they need to be qualified and routed to the correct department. So we'll look at essentially delivering our vertical solutions in terms of functional components. And this is how we actually price our implementations, where they can buy that initial lead engagement component, and the scope of work will encompass a few different pieces, because some clients may already have that online chat piece, but still want to have effective management of lead qualification in the CRM. So we kind of modulate it that way to be flexible, but have some really well-defined workflows. And if you head on over to our site, I'm sorry I haven't posted the videos for each component there, but you can see a little bit of a narrative outline. And if anyone wants to have a one-on-one with me I'll be happy to go over our full scope of how we address each of those modular components and run that delicate balance between having something that's productized, modulated, but then has some service work on top of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we have another question relating to price. And Massimo, I'll let you start off this one. How many times did you have to experiment with pricing to find the sweet spot on your product or licensing?
I don't have an exact number, to be honest, but if I'm going offhand, the mortgage. So I mean, truthfully, the way we did it, we actually started on the lower end price wise than we could have. And we've raised our price twice in almost 3 years now. So, and I think we have another one coming in Feb. And they're not massive raises; they're in the dollars. But so we kind of followed the Zoho track where we didn't come out and price. I think our app's like $70 a month US, and so we didn't come out and price if you pay yearly. We didn't come out and price in the hundreds of dollars, right? And so on this West product, though, we are experimenting it quite a bit because it workflow enhancement. That's the nickname we have. We're going to make a little character for it, and it'll be your little helper in your CRM. But anyways, with that one, we're experimenting. Sometimes we're charging $10, sometimes we're charging $200 a month. Like, it depends on the client, and we're trying to figure out exactly what they need and want. So it's honestly a lot of heart to hearts. I have a lot of those with clients saying, like, what do you think about this? Like the early adopters, we did that in the mortgage solution too. Some of our mentors and some of the clients we knew, we asked them what you would pay for this. We showed them a demo, and a lot of them were very honest with us. Then the market research. So a lot of the other CRMs, at least in Canada, and there weren't a ton, but in Canada, we're in the $70 to $80 range. So we started a bit below that to carve out some market share. And then we started bringing it up as we added more features. So I think that's important. You got to upgrade the app. You can't just ask for more money. And so, yeah, that would be my answer there.
Yeah, I think that our approach was somewhat similar. One of the focal points with our pricing strategy for Z Portals, which is a SaaS-based app, was to really interview clients to identify what value they were going to get from it. And we took a slightly different pricing approach to offer some flexibility for clients that didn't really fit well with Zoho's standard portal pricing. So a lot of portals are based on a user count, but we found that a lot of clients wanted to be able to invite all of their customers, even though maybe only 5 to 10 of them may be active in a given month. So after interviewing our customers and really identifying what value our product was providing, it really came down to efficiency. And we could tie the use of our product to time saved internally, answering emails, answering phone calls. So we tied our pricing model to the use of the app based on activity. And in terms of a price point, we experimented early on everywhere from $10 a month to $500 a month. And then after seeing usage patterns and what clients value we're getting from it, we narrowed it down to 3 options between 50 to 100 to 250 a month, depending on use. And we could only really do that after the product had been used for a year and we got some of that feedback.
Great. Thanks so much. And we have one more question from Ram. What do you recommend for a consulting company to get recurring revenue with vertical solutions, tools, or plugins? Where do you start?
I could start on that one. I mean, if you don't want to go vertical, the thing John Mark mentioned, the extensions, they're actually really cool in Zoho and they work really well. Kudos to their team if anyone's on the call. But like, so we also do that in our vertical. So we have specific provincial, not state, stuff that we embed into our mortgage solution. So I would say the easiest is extensions. If you can find problems that people are having in the Zoho realm, for example, connecting their phone, you can build an extension for that, or connecting their email provider, maybe it's Constant Contact or something. Those are much easier wins than building a whole suite. Now, granted, they are still tough. You got to dev them and all that stuff, but some of them can be easier that a lot of them can be easier than a vertical. And we're realizing that with Wes, like it's technically now we have some experience, but it's technically a shorter route to hit market traction with that because the vertical is easy to install. It's really well supported and you're not thinking of all these modules and all this other stuff potentially. So I would say go with an extension to start. It's probably your quickest win. I don't know what you think, JM. I'm going to call you JM, but yeah.
I'll definitely give a shout out to the verticals team. I know that they've been at it for a long time, and it's they've done a fantastic job with giving some tool sets. So definitely connect with the verticals team. I think that the extensions is a great place to start. We've had probably 6-7 extensions that we've used over the years, whether it's been a Google Maps integration for address verification, or populating vehicle information off of a VIN code. Lots of these little things that may only take, 50 hours to code, but could be so impactful to a client's business. And it's a great way to just charge $10 a month for this little widget. And to be honest, it's going to bring you a lot of leads. And that's going to actually help fuel your consulting business, because you're going to show some expertise in a particular area and a quick win for a client. Going with a full web app, Chrome extensions, be happy to chat with you about the pros and cons of doing that whole developer store route and doing complete web apps. We've done a number of them, and there's some pros and cons to it, certainly, but I don't want to go over time here for the session.
Well, that was the last question that we had. And on behalf of the entire partner team, thank you guys so much for sharing these insights, for sharing this information. This is exactly what we want to have more of in the coming year, more partners talking to each other, peer-to-peer learning. This was amazing, guys. Thank you so, so much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Take care. And lastly, you get to hear me for a few more minutes. So I want to bring it back to all of you, our partners. We see the work that you put in. We feel the work that you put in. We know that you are the backbone of our company and of our growth. And so I want to give a few shout outs to all of you. First off, this is a very long list to list off, but welcome to all of our new USA partners in 2020 and 2021. And all of our new Canadian partners from 2020 and 2021. Welcome. Thank you for sharing in the Zoho vision. Thank you for being committed to growing our business. And we hope you enjoy your time as a Zoho partner. I would also like to congratulate all of the partners that upgraded their tier from 2020 to 2021. We had Kyle David Group, Digital Transformation Group, and Amazing Business Results. And partners that advance from authorized to advance, 3Leaf, Fewer Hats, Jed Thomas Consulting, Nimbus Designs, Planned Growth, Rebiz, Synergy CRM Consultants, and Uncloud IT. We know that 2020 was a very, very hard year. So the fact that you guys were able to grow as much as you did and advance in your tier is huge. So kudos to all of you. And congratulations to our top US partners who continue moving the needle: ZBrains, Zanata, Catalyst Group, Cornerstone Solutions, Kyle David Group, Amazing Business Results, 330 Group, Digital Transformation Management, BoostedCRM.com, and AlderBest Solutions. And of course, our top Canadian partners. There are far less of you, so we did top 5: NSI Solutions, Just John BSP, I hope I pronounced that correctly. I speak Spanish, not French. Blue Root, Skyfluent CRM Solutions, and Go Integrations, Inc. We appreciate all of you. And if you weren't on the list, there is still another year ahead. And lastly, I would just like to say thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us today. We hope you enjoyed our first virtual Partner Inspire Day. We look forward to connecting more often and continuing to expand our initiatives with our partner community. Whether you've been a partner with us from the beginning, over a decade, or are a newer partner just joining our mission, we appreciate all that you do to keep customers content and continuing their Zoho journey. Thank you for being the guiding force behind the scenes for our shared customers. We are grateful for your efforts to help our users get situated and join the Zoho ecosystem for years to come. We want to assure you that we are committed to our partners around the globe and want to continue building successful relationships with those that share our vision. It has been a long and uncertain past couple years. We thank you for trusting in us as we navigate the initial uncertainties of the pandemic. We think of our partners as our extended family of Zoho and could not be as successful as we are without you. We hope to get back to in-person events as soon as we're able to. As enjoyable as working from home can be, I know we all miss seeing our Zoho community, as I've seen in the chats today. We're truly grateful for how long many of you have been partnered with Zoho. It's your trust in us that has been the foundation of our own growth and success, as you all play a big part in our continued journey. Thank you again for joining us today. I hope you all enjoyed our event, and I can't wait to see you all in person soon. And happy holidays, everyone.